And welcome to the Miracle of Prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network. I'm your host, Reverend Jim Webb, author of the book, The Soul of Prosperity, as well as several mini books, including 30 P's for Prosperity, Prosperity from A to Z, and Creating Your Self Manifesting Vision Board. What a pleasure to be here tonight with you, and we've got a wonderful show planned for you. We are talking about coming out as prosperous. Coming out as prosperous. The reason we wanted to do a show on coming out as prosperous is because of what I've observed in my many years as a coach, counselor, a spiritual advisor. And that is, I've noticed that there are times when people shrink. They almost shrink wrap themselves in order to fit in with the crowd. And that's a natural part of how we were raised. In some societies, they say the nail that stands up and stands out gets pounded down. And so we've learned to shrink in order to conform. But what we also realize is that prosperity in all of its many facets, prosperity is simply the light of God shining through. And just like a diamond has 68 facets, if you are not letting the light of God shine through all of the facets of your being, you are blocking that light, its creative power, and its creative potential. And so it is likely that you are blocking an avenue of prosperity. So coming out for prosperity has to do with being safe, comfortable, and at peace with every aspect of yourself, and being so safe, comfortable, and at peace with every aspect of yourself that you allow every aspect of yourself to receive the light, the healing, and the inspiration from God that flows through you and then takes the form of outer prosperity in a number of different ways: physical prosperity, logistical prosperity, relationship prosperity, family prosperity, and of course, financial prosperity. And these are just a few. So, our task tonight is to find if there are some ways that we've been blocking our true authenticity and thus blocking our ability to create and manifest the prosperity we desire. Coming out for prosperity. And I have a special guest tonight. I have a special guest, retired educator, coach, counselor, Cheryl Miller. And the reason that hello, Cheryl. Hello, Coach Cheryl.
I forgot I put myself on mute. Hi, Reverend Jim. Good
So,
evening. Evening,
good
everyone.
evening. So glad to have you. And the reason that I chose Coach Cheryl is because she did something recently that so impressed me. She said, I'm coming out into my full spiritual self. And it was a process because she had been a little bit reluctant to let the fullest of her spirituality express itself because some might have considered it less than traditional. And in her coming out, she felt so liberated. And she was then able to allow God to work with her, through her, and for her in more ways. And it has helped her. And that's why I wanted you to come onto the show tonight, Coach Cheryl. So tell us a little bit more about that process of coming out in the ways that you did spiritually.
Thank you again for the introduction. For those who don't know the backstory, what Reverend Jim was stating is that I had been practicing spirituality and practicing my traditional beliefs as a Christian. And then one day, God just told me to speak my truth as a Christian witch. Now, the word witch has been demonized, and the history of just that word had a lot of people in shaking in their boots. And we crafted the word witch as a woman in tune with conscious healing. So one
Yes.
day on Facebook, I decided I was first going to do it undercover because I had a group of fellow sister witches. We were able to be comfortable with sharing our own spirituality. But then when I shared with Reverend Jim and he saw that, he was like, okay, you have to have this story told. So this is what he's speaking of.
Yes. So you decided to come out as a Christian witch, a woman in touch with conscious healing.
That's
And that word is so loaded that it filled you with trepidation.
yes, yes.
How did you handle, manage that trepidation and that hesitation, and what pulled you forward?
Well, as I stated initially, I was going to take the back door approach, and
Yeah.
but the spirit within me would not allow me to do that because
Hmm.
it was the plan to do that, but none of the technology was working for me to go in that direction. And so I had to get on my own live and speak my truth there because that day it was for me to go and just kind of say it to the circle of women I was already in tune with. But once I actually did that, once I actually embraced that aspect of myself that my ancestors passed down with the healing modalities and with the things that we had actually in my family, we used to always practice. Those
Hmm.
things kind of gotten away from me, and
Hmm.
therefore I was shunning them and only
Mm.
the traditional part, the things that was acceptable. But my
Hmm.
soul called me to be more and to do more because everybody else needed more from me, and I'm
Yes.
here for that reason. So it was one of those things that if you don't, what is it? It says the spirit will push you until your vision pulls you, and
Yes.
it was pretty much I was thrust.
Yes. Yes. And so what you found is that you found a wider range of spiritual expression and thus more light, more grace, and more healing flowing to you and through you. Now
Yes.
tell us, how did that affect your well-being?
Well, I had always practiced holistic methodologies in my healing journey, and
Mm-hmm.
I was going with also the traditional medicines, but they did not. Some of them did not work for me,
Okay.
and so I was always doing other things, alternative approaches. But
Mhm.
what ended up happening was that was like a natural pull, and the more that I actually practiced that, it was still undercover. I would share with my family different things that worked. They didn't want to
Mhm.
hear because they were accustomed to their way of doing things. And I
Yes.
think my great grandparents and all some ancestor in me was just saying, you are the one. You're
Mm.
the one that must bring this out. And so as I started talking and sharing with people, and actually they were drawn to me,
Mhm.
they were receiving it because it was something that they were very open to. So I
Mm.
would say for me, that process of that inner knowing just was allowed to come out and express itself more when I vocalized that day.
Mhm. Okay. So, what you're telling our viewers is, if there is a desire of your heart, if there is some way that you would like to express in your life, or if there is something that you would choose to manifest, one of the ways to allow it is to vocalize it and to allow that vocalization to be the crystallization of your intention. Am I
That's
hearing you correctly?
That's correct. That's correct. Because once you speak it, then you give it expression that way. I was practicing it, but it was in within me. So I was the only one holding the knowledge. When I started to speak it, then it was like the voice, the communication resonated with others who wanted to be able to practice their expression, their journey, their gifts in the same way. But again, they were doing like the thing I was doing, kind of hiding it. And so I
Yes.
ended up coming out. And once I did
Hmm.
that, it was so liberating. And then what
Hmm.
I learned was there were more people who also desired to express themselves. And we're like, it's not one of those things now I'm the only one. It's like, wow, where
Yes.
have you all been?
Where you all been? We've been waiting for you. Uh, A Course in Miracles, there's a lesson. I am not alone in the effects of my healing. In other words, when I am healed, I am not healed alone.
Yes,
And what sometimes surprises us is that we there is a grand plan and there are souls literally waiting for us to flicker our light because us flickering our light gives them permission to flicker their light. And they've
mhm,
been waiting for us. They are drawn to us. They have been waiting for us. And they will prosper us as we prosper them.
absolutely, absolutely. It's just like one of the laws, the law of circulation just continue,
Yes.
the giving and then the receiving process, and it just continues to circulate. So if I had not spoken out and if I just held on, then I was actually interrupting that cyclical flow.
That cyclical flow. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the question for our viewers is is there something that you're hanging on to? Is there something that you're being quiet about? Is there something that wants to express through you? If there is, and you are not giving it permission to express, it is certainly worth examining that because the benefit of expressing it is that you open a flow and you enhance the circulation of good. And what
Mm,
is prosperity other than the circulation and expansion of good?
yes.
So, Cheryl, did you have some family constraints that you had to deal with either consciously or unconsciously in your coming out process?
Oh yes. That was one of the reasons that I kind of hesitated because
Okay.
my family, many of the members of my family still practice traditional religious practice, which is fine, and
Mhm.
they wondered like, what's going on with you?
Yes.
The reaction was, is she all together now? Did she lose it? And that was one of the fears, that acceptance of how would they accept me? How would they receive me now with now this expression? And I had to actually walk myself through. One thing about being a coach and a spiritual life coach is that you first coach yourself. So I had to walk myself through that process of what it would be like if my family did not receive what I was sharing with them. If they were the last ones to receive it, I had to be okay with that. There are
Mhm.
members now who have embraced it. They see that what I'm doing makes me happy. It brings me joy. It allows me to be a light in the world. So some of them before was like, but now they just like, oh, we're proud of you. And others, they say nothing. So whatever they're feeling about it is, they pretty much hold that within themselves. So
Yes.
but that's been my experience as my family is concerned.
Yes, and that can be part of the struggle. And it's fascinating how deeply those family dynamics run. And it
Mm,
occurred to me that quite often, and I actually put something about this in my book, quite often as children, we are reliant on the family for our survival. So any hint of family disapproval sends us into a primal fear because that child within fears that we will not get what we need to survive.
yeah.
And Cheryl, I didn't realize this. till how deep this was until years later. Long and short, uh, I was going to my family's for Christmas, and then I was going to my other family in Ohio from Pittsburgh. And as
Mhm.
I'm in Pittsburgh telling my family, well, once I leave Ohio, I'm flying to Istanbul to buy rugs. I could see
Wait,
family
what?
members' heads exploding. Well, can't you buy rugs at Sears? Because it was outside of the realm of their thinking to fly all the way to Istanbul, Turkey to buy rugs. Well, I had a big townhouse and lots of square footage of wood, and there I could get them for pennies on the dollar. And the flight to Istanbul was only $50 more than the flight to Dulles. But the family was in a totally different mindset. And I'm going to tell you something, it felt like I had been kicked in the gut
Yeah,
because I didn't realize how deeply that family enmeshment and that unconscious inner child need to please the family and the fear of losing their approval. I didn't realize how deep it was.
yeah, yeah,
And so that can be a lot to deal with. And you mentioned that you had to coach yourself through it. Can
yes.
you give us some pointers on what you did to coach yourself through it?
Well, first I had to just go within, and because it was spirit that unctioned me to walk through this and come on out and be
Mm,
authentic and express myself. So I
okay.
knew that my connection with my God, with spirit, would not lead me astray. So I had to
Mm,
first connect and be in tune with that. And then I had to be okay with whatever my family felt or thought, because they had their own experience, their own thought. And
mm-hmm,
again, it was what we learned. So it was
mm,
a matter of them opening up their understanding. So I had to be
mhm,
in acceptance of the fact that, what they thought and they feared for me was no
mhm,
longer necessary, but they still was in that thought process. I
mhm,
recognized that this was for me, and I got
mhm,
that confirmation from God.
mhm.
Nothing at that point. They understood that when God says move, you move. They understood that.
Yes,
It was just
yes,
they didn't expect God would have me move in a
in that
direction.
way.
It ain't gonna move.
Yes,
That's the part.
yes,
Just like you said, you're traveling to a whole nother country. Well, what's over there? It's like their protective mode of
yes.
thinking that you're in danger to do that, and there's nothing they can
Mhm,
do. If something would go on, but your spirit knew that you were going to be
mm,
okay, and
yes,
what that place offered. So it's a
yes.
matter of some people being able to move through those limited beliefs, those fears. And I knew
Mhm,
that I did enough work on myself to be able to
mhm,
move through that, because my life was a demonstration of that. So once I
yes.
kind of just assured the inner child in me that was like, oh no,
Mm,
they're not going to love me.
yes.
God loves me. Then I was good.
Yes. So doing the work is an integral part of coming out. Doing the work meaning building such a strong relationship with Spirit, building such a strong trust in God, building such a deep experience of oneness with God, and
Yeah.
feeling that flow so regularly that you develop and cultivate a sense of blessed assurance. Are you saying that that's an important part of this?
Oh, absolutely. And that's not just even in the areas that relate to your family, in areas
Mm-hmm.
that for me that I told myself that related to things that I thought that I could not do. Like for instance,
Mm,
I love to travel, like you,
yes.
and and I started traveling, when I was younger,
Mm-hmm.
to places even alone. And
Mm-hmm.
I just knew when I did that, I was always safe, and I felt like I can be whatever obstacles or whatever someone fear based presented. I'm saying, well, that can happen here,
Mm,
might I just
mhm.
stay? So
Yeah.
I knew then I was interrupting those beliefs, those patterns, that limitation. And I also
Mhm,
witnessed in my life how God was opening up things for me, and I trusted
mhm,
that. So Yeah, it's a process, but
Yes.
once you take that first step in the process and say, "Oh,
Hmm.
still here," and then the second step, "Oh, okay, I'm still here," then it
Hmm.
becomes easier, just like a baby learning to walk.
Uh-huh.
It's a little bit shaky at first, but then next thing you know, the baby is driving and running and
Yes.
don't want to leave me alone. I got
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So it sounds like a part of our task is to do the work, build the trust, build the faith, then step forward in the faith. Is that accurate?
Yes, and sometimes if the faith is not all there, you step
Hmm.
forward anyway because a part of the process is growing through the process, growing through.
Hmm.
So your trust has to be also that muscle of trust has to be there and exercise. It can't just be something said; it has to be in your actions as well. So yes, I
Yes.
agree.
Okay. And so the moral of the story so far is do not interrupt the flow of God and God's ideas through you because you are blocking the blessings that can lead to your prosperity. Now, I want
Yes.
to talk a little bit more about that on the other side of the break. And we want to take your questions on the other side of the break. So if you've got questions, feel free to put them in the chat room. Let us know you're there. And we thank you for that. And we'll be back here on the New Thought Media Network.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
back with the miracle of prosperity here on the New Thought Media Network and Coach Cheryl Miller. Now, Coach Cheryl, one of the things you mentioned before was that you had to ask yourself, how would it feel if they weren't okay with my choices? And so tell us, what did you do to heal that part of you that might have been terrified that they wouldn't?
Well, a part of my practice, especially my daily spiritual practice, is prayer and meditation. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as I started to, again, um, if you will, integrate more spirituality
Mm-hmm.
into my religious belief, because I still love the Bible, I still love
Mm-hmm.
the experiences that I got through the church, but it was an
Yes.
expansion of my spiritual practice, things that I can do and allow
Mm-hmm.
myself to manifest through my mind body connection.
Yes.
Once I was able to just receive that, I
Mm-hmm.
think that the fear or the nervousness subsided, because what I
Mm-hmm.
did notice is a part of my fear was also attracting some nervousness from my family members, because again,
Mm-hmm.
it was new, like it was new for me.
Right.
I started to share, and once they start to observe me, just my transformation, not so
Mm-hmm.
much what I said, but the way I was being in the world, that was
Yes.
what really spoke to them and to me. I felt much more calmer and less
Mm-hmm.
reactive to what other
Yes.
people thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have to react. I just
Mm-hmm.
responded or allowed,
Mm-hmm.
whatever others thought, it was not in my control either way. I have
Mm-hmm.
no control of how others people think of me. Is what I think of myself and my relationship. So once I began to just embrace that, then
Mm-hmm.
things just sort of, yeah, dissipated.
Yeah.
The I think I was pulling in the fear by overthinking things.
Yeah. And your daily spiritual practice brought you calmness, clarity, peace, and healing. Is that what I'm
Yes,
hearing?
yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
for our viewers, anytime you are facing anything, any hesitation, any part of you comes up that needs to be loved and healed, your task is your daily spiritual practice, your prayer, your meditation, your release work, which creates the void so that more light, more inspiration, more guidance, more strength, more energy, more focus, and more vision can flow in.
Mm, yeah.
So, Reverend Coach Cheryl just taught us something wonderful. Your daily spiritual practice is an integral part of being in your full authenticity, and being in your full authenticity is very helpful in allowing prosperity from many different facets of your being to be made manifest. Thank you. That's wonderful guidance, Coach Cheryl. Do you have any other guidance on our viewers on how being in their fullness can help them attract more of their good?
Well, I would say some of us knew from the time we were young what our gift, what was uniquely us, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes when we were asked to conform,
Mm-hmm.
we our inner child had a certain way of rebelling or having resistance to that. I would
Mm-hmm.
say for those who are still holding back and still not certain if they should, allow or express themselves, just talk to that inner knowing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then also reach out to others. Now the world is so vast that you can find someone to connect to, even if you have to ask spirit, whatever way you call in your support on the other side, your spiritual support. Use that to say, okay, send me who it is that I need, so that I can be able to express myself in the most authentic way, if it's not from your family support. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, just listen, be still, allow that. And once that happens, someone will come. It will
Mm,
either be a book, it will be a message, or it'll probably be a person. Most times it came through people for me.
mhm,
So just be open to seeing and hearing, because that knowing on the inside will not stop until you allow
mhm.
yourself to be and accept the truth of who you really are.
Yes. In other words, it's a knowing, and it will gnaw at you until you know it.
I've heard spiritual leaders say, it starts with a whisper, and then you might
Uh-huh.
hear a little bell, then it'll be a challenge. Then when it gets louder, that means you waited too long.
Mhm. Mhm.
It won't let you
Exactly.
rest. So you might as well surrender to it and just find
Yes.
the support you need. It will be
Yes.
beautiful.
It will be beautiful. Now, one of the other things you said that I would like to emphasize for our viewers was that when you expanded your spirituality beyond what you thought were the family bounds of traditional Christianity,
Yes,
you said not instead of, but in addition to.
right.
And that concept is so powerful because we tend to think of things as a zero sum game. If I'm this, then I'm no longer that. I'm no longer the good daughter. I'm no longer the good son. I'm no longer all the things they thought me to be because I'm this instead. But really, what you're teaching us is that it is not instead of, but it is in addition to. You are expanding who
Yeah,
you are, so that as you expand who you expand the ways you can serve, you expand the ways you are served, and you expand the ways that prosperity can be served through you, and you expand the ways that prosperity can serve you. Is that accurate?
that's accurate. And so what you said is and both. You can have your new way of being, and you
Hmm.
can also still embrace that traditional way of being. It just means that in anything that's in conflict, you look at it and see if it's serving your highest good. If it's not serving your highest good, then there's a growing through process that you can release, not to be attached. If it's not no longer serving what it's serving in your new way of being, then it's okay to release it. God doesn't want us in any way to be attached to something that is not allowing for us to fully express ourselves. So yes.
Mm. Wonderful. Wonderful. Any other advice for our viewers before we go to break and then take questions?
I would just say just stand in your power and be. It is the most liberating thing, and it shows in your body. People will see it in you. They would say, "It's something different about you. Did you change your hair?"
Mm,
And you might change your hair. You might start to express those things that you always wanted to express. So it
mm,
might become a hair change. It may become
mm.
a
Yeah.
wardrobe change. It may
Mhm,
come out in any form, but embrace it all,
mm.
and be okay with others saying, "Oh, well, you look different. Thank you." Just receive that.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, we've got a question even before we went to the break so people could type them in. Rosabella at 8:32 asked a question about your opinion on how to connect adult children with this process of being in their full authenticity.
Mm. Well, I would say since they are now adults, find out first if they've had any type of experience of desiring to be or have something that they felt they couldn't be or have because of constructs. Ask the question, did you ever feel like there was something that you really wanted to do, and somehow either me or anybody may have discouraged you? I'm just asking for information, and allowing them, if they're like, what's going on? Why are you asking me? No, I'm just curious, because for me, speak to your feeling. If you haven't done that for yourself first, it's going to be hard to ask your adult children. So first find out from yourself, was there something that you wanted to be, have, and do, and you didn't allow yourself? And explore that part. And then when you find that for yourself, ask them, I realize, now in my 50s, that I always wanted to play the piano and I never did because I thought my fingers were too short, whatever you made up. But now I'm at 55 allowing myself that expression. So if it was something that you wanted to be, have, or do, and you didn't allow yourself, once you liberate yourself to do that, then you can ask if your adult children, if they've had that experience, and their guides will come, and they're there already, but they may not hear them because they may have silenced them based on what they think the family might think about them. So yeah, I hope that answered your
What
question.
a real answer. And it sounds almost like put the oxygen mask on yourself
Absolutely.
before
Absolutely. Yeah,
applying
before
it
you
to
start asking them, they're like, why do you ask? Because if you haven't done it, it's going to be hard for them to give themselves permission to do it as well.
Mm, wonderful. Wonderful question. Wonderful response. Thank you so much. Now, for our viewers, if you've got other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to go to break. We're going to come back. We're going to do any additional questions that we have, and then we're going to have some surprises for you here on the New Thought Media Network.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe DeMuro.
And we're back here on the Miracle of Prosperity on the New Thought Media Network. Now, we had a question from Shay at 818 about how she diverged from her family's vision for her, and it created a lot of grief. Coach Cheryl, what advice or support would you offer to Shay regarding how to handle, deal with, confront, heal, and support the grief she felt as a result of this seeming separation from her family?
Hmm. Well, let me first say, Shay, I do understand what you are going through if you're still presently going through that. That was the experience I had initially, with my own family. And I would confess there are still some members of my family who have not yet accepted or embraced my way of being. But what I would say to you, grief is definitely normal, because any type of relationship where there is a little bit of you feel pulling apart will make that inner child think that they're not loved. So I would say just first go within and speak to that part of you that feels that grief. Allow that grief, allow those emotions to be felt and expressed. Allow it to go fully through your body. And then also think about what it would be for you not to stand in the truth of who you are, because that will also create some form of grief. And know
Mm,
the connection that you have with your divine source wants you to be fully happy and accepting of you. Once you just completely embrace that, then others will come along. They may not
mm,
all come along when you think they should or would or whatever, but it's okay as long as you are good with who you are and how you are being in the world. Then
mm.
that is the most important part. Assure that inner knowing in you that you are good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So,
Mhm.
you have done some wonderful things with your life, Coach Cheryl. And I, for one, am so proud of you. And I am just so thrilled with some of the things you're up to. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days?
Okay, well, presently, what I'm up to is helping people to do as this show do, discover their own coming out process and their own prosperity process. Because
Mhm.
once you allow yourself to be who you came here to this world to be, prosperity will come. So I'm in the process, I do these 90-day health and wellness challenges. And it allows people to choose an area in your life where you may have gotten stuck or need some transformation, needs some kind of shift to take place. It could be physical, it could be emotional, mental, and it could also be a combination of spiritual. But I help you to walk through that process, putting you into a 90-day challenge. And I do that through the health and wellness program. So that's what I'm presently doing right now.
Mm. And how would they get in touch with you about that?
Well, I have a website and also a form where you can complete and fill that out. I'll go through a series of questions to see what it is you would like to shift in your life, and then
Mhm.
I will book a call to see if what I offer is something that you could benefit from.
Okay. Sounds like you're working on some pretty exciting stuff. And what's that Melaleuca?
Yes,
Tell us
Melaleuca
about it.
is the company that I partner with for the holistic approach for physical ailments, any kind of physical ailments that take place. But I also have a group where we meet and have an accountability process for one another. And this process also is a membership program. So once you get in it, it's like a membership and you do it for 90 days. And so this is the affiliate company that we use.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sounds
Yeah.
like you're working on some pretty exciting stuff, Coach Cheryl.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. It's always good to have something interesting to offer people.
Yes, yes, yes. So, what about you, Reverend Jim? What do you have going on in your life?
Oh, well, I've got a lot, but I've got some classes that are going on right now, and I reserved a couple of spots for walk-ins for these classes. The first one is Ask Spirit Anything.
Mm,
And Ask Spirit Anything is a class that people can take if they wanted to ask any kind of question on any category of spirit. Spirit gives them individual guidance. Spirit then offers them prayers, rituals and ways to address whatever question they have. And usually, when a person asks a question, it's everybody's question. And so I'm doing that for a few more weeks. It's on Zoom. And if you are not able to come in as a walk in, we make recordings available as well. That's Ask Spirit Anything. And then we're doing You Can Heal Your Life on
Yeah.
Thursday evenings. You can heal your life. Quite often, what happens is when we ask spirit questions, we are really trying to heal or address something that stands between us and our good. You Can Heal Your Life is an opportunity to bring those issues to the fore, and we work on them through spiritual practice, through spiritual energy, through spiritual guidance to heal what is at the core of what stands between us and our good. And that's going on for a few weeks as well, and that's on Thursday evenings. And the other thing that I'm quite excited about is right now at 7 a.m. every morning, we're doing the A Course in Miracles call. And we're doing Greatest Hits, which is a portion of it I love. We finished all 365 lessons, and until the first full week in April, we are doing Greatest Hits. And what Greatest Hits are some of the key lessons throughout. We're
Mm.
reviewing them. And then on the first full week in April, we will start all over again. And the reason that I share that is because many people think, oh, they're halfway through it already. I missed the boat. Well, we're starting again the first full week of May. The first full week of May. We're starting again. And so if you think you missed the boat, you haven't. The boat's come back to shore. We can pick you up. Okay? So those are some of the things I'm working on. Life continues to be good as we all continue to nurture our prosperity consciousness. So I want to thank you, Coach Cheryl, for being a part of our experience today. Thank you so much. And I want to thank our viewers, our guests, everyone, and our producer, Reverend Michael Mangus. And we'll be back next week here on the New Thought Media Network.